Hi, Ro. Hi, Julia. Do you want to do a quick
Hi.
introductions of yourselves before we start?
Hi, sure. So I'm Ro. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Courseau. We are an authoring platform and a learning platform as well for B2B companies. We're great for subject matter experts, but also for instructional designers.
Hi, I'm Julie. I am from the corporate world. So I started as an instructional designer, a practitioner of e-learning and learning courses in general. And from that time, I've also worked at Google and Chanel on the corporate side, both developing learning courses as well as procuring learning as well. So I'm kind of bringing more of the practitioner side of the world to this.
Cool. Great to have you two on. So today's webinar is about AI and e-learning. So I am curious, what are some of the biggest challenges that the e-learning industry is facing today, and how do you think that AI can help overcome them?
So maybe I can start from a practitioner side of things. I think from the beginning, e-learning, the promise of e-learning was always about scale and being able to reach as many people as possible to be able to offer learning opportunities, however small or large. And a lot of the work that I did with the government, for example, was very large. So it would involve hours and hours and hours of learning for people to be able to get upskilled into their jobs. And so over time, I think we've seen some efficiencies, but I would say that the development and efficiencies has been quite linear. And for the first time, I think AI is now offering kind of an exponential ability to scale e-learning in ways that we didn't imagine before. So where personalization and building different dynamic options for e-learning was sort of ideas early on in order to actually achieve that, it requires significant investment. And some government or military groups would do this, but I think that AI can really change all of that. It's for the first time we're seeing this amount of dynamic personalization is now possible.
We only had like good LLMs for the past 2 years, and what do you think is going to change over the next years? Is it going to grow even faster, or what are we going to see in the space?
So besides authoring, I think LLMs are especially potent when it comes to synthesizing ideas and creating like very specific outcomes. So and very quickly at scale. So this is obviously very useful when it comes to hyper personalization for every individual or every department at a company. And I think that's going to be like leveraging that is going to be really huge.
So I think another way that we're going to see AI evolving in e-learning is just that it's a time of disruption. You know, there's a lot of different players sort of entering the space, trying different things, and I think there's going to be some things that work, and then there's going to be some things that don't work so well. So I think we're going to see a lot of, riding this wave, a lot of testing, a lot of tumultuous sorts of stops and starts and so forth. But I think that where we initially see a lot of AI having an impact here is really in the content creation, just with ChatGPT being at everybody's fingertips, being able to ask for different content. But I think that where you're going to really see the uptick is in being able to integrate that into the flow of building e-learning. And I think that's what's interesting about Courseau is the sense that it does all of that content generation in the flow of actually creating learning as opposed to just information and structuring that in a way that is built, for how people learn, how adults learn.
Yeah, I guess also when it gets easier to make content, then the quality of content is also going to be something that plays a huge role.
It's true. I didn't even mention that, but I actually want to add on to my previous point. Besides, the personalization and what you mentioned, the quality of the content. Another aspect that we've been really interested in is what your company is doing, and that's skills mapping and finding gaps where the needs are and having AI propose courses to fill these gaps to fulfill like a learning directive, for example, and then automatically being able to generate those courses at will be really powerful, and giving a lot of kind of power back to the learner actually, or teams that don't have an instruction designer and like a large team that is dedicated to figuring out who's missing what in their knowledge base.
Do you see AI replacing traditional industrial design roles, or will it augment them? This is a question we get all the time. People are scared.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing to be scared. I mean, AI is sort of threatening, I'm putting this in air quotes, threatening jobs all over the place, because we can envision how some of the jobs we've traditionally associated with roles essentially going away with this. But I don't believe that it's going to replace instructional designers. I think that the role of instructional designers will shift in terms of emphasis. So instead of really focusing on creating content, writing content, drafting, revising, all of these things, it'll be more about their ability to get crystal clear on what the business and learning needs are, and being able to create a laser focus on those things. It will also be about focusing on the strategy and overall learning needs. So maybe coming back to this idea of skills mapping, spending more time getting clear on what those skills and competencies need to be across the organization. And those are frankly things that weren't possible to do before. So now, in some ways, AI is opening up frontiers that will now be possible, that instructional designers will be able to kind of tackle in a new way. So while it's closing some doors around content creation specifically, it's opening other doors for them to have a greater impact across the board. But the other thing is, I think we also know that AI is very early days, and that, essentially instructional designers will have to become more savvy around things around prompt engineering, and identifying where there's distortions in the data, hallucinations and some of those things. So really validating and ensuring that everything that they're producing within courses that's AI assisted is in fact technically correct. So keeping an eye towards those things.
So in what way do you envision that AI is transforming personalized learning experiences for students or employees?
Yeah, so imagine that a student or a colleague goes into their learning dashboard, and they're able to tell the company or the dashboard what their personal interests are. And you're able to actually create a course with, let's say, examples or little nuggets in there that tie back to their existing interests. So what you're doing is you're taking something that is really strong, like neural connections in their brain that are really strong, and then you're connecting the new concepts to those. So even if it doesn't seem to make much sense, AI is able to kind of make a story out of it, make a narrative out of it. That is really easy for LLMs to do. And it helps with learning and memorization. So students are able to take a self-directed approach. It accommodates also a wider range of learning preferences and abilities, including neurodivergencies, because a lot of people who are neurodivergent have a hard time staying on track and paying attention. And then also it fosters curiosity-based learning, because if you're actually interested in the subject because it ties to something you care about, then you might be interested in taking that on a role by yourself, and not even with external pressure. So that's very exciting for personalized learning.
Yeah, and this is so interesting because one of the things that we map out when we do mapping for a role, it's of course key competencies is the soft and hard skills, but one thing is also critical work tasks. And one thing that we have been looking for is to connect the competency up to the everyday work tasks that the person is doing, so it actually makes sense, because so many times you're doing courses and you can't understand how this is related to what you're doing. So I think that's an amazing take as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point, and actually linking that back to the role of instructional designers, you've just nailed that, because so much training, learning that's generated out there, the focus is all about knowledge And what does get lost is what people are actually supposed to do with that knowledge. And so one of the things that I love about the Courseau interface and the flow is that it focuses from the very beginning on what is it that you're asking the learner to be able to do. And the knowledge then becomes in service of those actions, those behaviors, as opposed to just throwing knowledge at people and hoping that they figure out along the way what they're supposed to be able to do with it.